So business continuity is something that many entrepreneurs just completely forget about when running their businesses. And this is very high risk. Now, what is business continuity? Is it simply a matter of you wanting to take some leave and having somebody at the office that's able to run the business for you? Yes, to a certain degree operationally, that is business continuity, but it goes deeper than that. What if you're very sick? What if you become disabled? What if you become incapacitated? What if you personally become insolvent? And what if you pass away? There's many events in a person's life that could lead to harm being caused to their business. So I'm first going to explain how this actually all ties up. If I have a business and I feel that it's mine, I run it, I make decisions. A lot of the operations are based on my authorization, my banking approvals. Everything is on me, right? There's no backup plan. So as soon as something happens to me, no one else can take it over and can continue with the business because it's entirely reliant. There was no contingency. So maybe the first conversation to have is to look at your business and audit it and imagine a situation where you had to just disappear tomorrow. What would happen to your business? Are there contingencies in place where the remaining staff members, the remaining partners, the remaining directors, the other shareholders are actually able to step in and start taking things over without it damaging the business? Remember, yes, you might be able to go to the bank and claim that there's a missing person and claim that you don't know where they are and prove that you're a shareholder. But that's not a overnight thing. And it may not even be a thing at all if you can't prove all those things. And so I think operationally, it's very important for a person to first actually figure out if they have these contingencies in place. Now, where do I typically see this happen the most often? First off, it's sole proprietors. So this is when I run the business in my personal name, right? And it does happen. A lot of people do it. Lawyers still do it quite a lot. Doctors do it. Even just traders. What do? They buy stock, they sell stock. And now they've got their whole family involved and maybe they share profits with their family, but ultimately everything is in their name. And if you look at lawyers, you look at doctors, the practice is in their name. Now, sometimes there's less risk there because unfortunately, if the person does pass away, there is no practice left to have. So you simply sell the assets, the files go on to somebody else and your family carry on with their lives. But if there's assets of value in this business, if this business is actually able to continue without that specific person in the business, unfortunately, if something happens to you, the business comes to a grinding halt. And if you're a sole proprietor, that typically would happen. There's very little that a person can do. It's not like you can sign power of attorneys in favor of somebody else because those don't apply if you pass away or become incapacitated because power of attorneys don't survive that. So unfortunately, as a sole proprietor, it is quite difficult. You'd have to actually share authority for banks and things like that. Where I also find this happens a lot, and this is a mistake that people make, and unfortunately that attorneys make when they don't advise their clients properly, is when you start companies and when you're trying to prepare for the company and trying to visualize how this company is going to function, a lot of people are very keen to say, no, but it should be a shareholder decision. No, let's make that a shareholder decision. Every time we do this, the shareholders must vote in favor of this. Remember, the more that shareholders need to do, the worse it is. Because shareholders might be individuals, right? And if the business cannot operate without the shareholders making decisions, the business comes to a grinding halt. The whole point is that a business runs through its directors. If a director passes away, you simply replace the director. So yes, even if you are a director, if you pass away, the business continues. The company does not pass away. The new director is appointed and the business continues after that. But as soon as shareholders are brought in, you can't just appoint a new shareholder. That's not how it works. A shareholder's actual ownership. A director's a job, right? So if a shareholder actually owns the shares, they don't simply get replaced. If they pass away, what happens? Now the estate administration process begins to take place. Now this takes years. I mean, just to appoint an executor takes months, right? Once that happens, the executor has a huge amount of things that need to do. It needs to lay for inspection after that. The master needs to approve and consent to many things. Maybe certain assets need to get sold. Documents, L&D accounts need to be drafted. Estates take years to wrap up. I mean, that's not even to look at whether there's insurance policies that you need to look for and bring in. If there's fights and disputes, that takes even longer. Hell, if there's no will, you're looking at years, because now there is a fighting over who gets what. It's a complete disaster. And if that executor is responsible for running the business, he's going to have a very tough time, because now who's the executor? If you've hired somebody you don't even know as an executor, they're not going to be able to make business decisions in the best interest of the business. So very important. Business continuity is what I normally suggest in operational situations, is that allow the operations of the business to continue, and always imagine the person not being there and how one would cater for that as a backup plan, right? Especially in death. Insolvency and death, there are ways that you can make sure that if something were to happen to someone, you can go to the bank and simply change the authorizations to allow the new directors access to the bank account, right? So that's an operation. That's from an operational perspective, and very important to bear in mind. Now, the other thing that we also need to factor in when it comes to businesses, directors, shareholders, and continuity is, if I have a business and I've put my heart and soul into this business, and I've got a business partner and he's put his heart and soul, we need to make a decision at some point or another. What happens to the business when one of us passes away? So this isn't so much the relationship between getting the business to continue operating. This is more the conversation about how does the business continue healthily and into the future, especially bearing in mind the people that have dedicated their time to this business. Now, I might not want my business partner's spouse to suddenly show up and become a shareholder and have a say in everything that happens, and then try vote me out as a director, whatever the case is, right? That's very high risk. And vice versa. They might not want my wife or my children, or whoever I leave the shares to, because they're my shares. And if they're in my name, I leave them to whoever I want. I could leave them to a complete stranger, and my business partner is now stuck with a complete stranger sitting next to him at a table voting on the future of the business. If you are in business with somebody else and you're co-shareholders, please, please, please ensure that you've got an agreement between each other, where if something happens to the one, the shares are bought out by the other, right? Almost like a forced sale. It's not by choice. It's, if you pass away and your shares are suddenly hanging in the air and going to somebody else, I have the right to actually acquire them and buy them out, right? So, and you can even set a valuation method and make sure that everything is down to the T to make sure that it goes smoothly without any issues, without any delays. Again, now bear in mind, continuity. Shares cost money, right? Now you value this business, and now where are you going to find 2 million, 3 million, 4 million, 10 million rand to buy these shares? It's difficult. You might not have that type of cash. This is where you look at insurance policies and make sure that you've got the right insurance over that person's life to cover the purchase of their shares in your favor. This is something that even the tax acts make provision for, that aren't included in the estate of the deceased, and something that every business that has multiple partners should definitely, unquestionably, and there's no way that you change my mind, it must be in place.